The story of David and Goliath is one of the great stories of the Old Testament. Let's take a look at that story from 1 Samuel chapter 17. Now the Philistines gathered their forces for war and assembled at Socoh in Judah. They pitched camp at Ephes Dammim between Socoh and Azekah. Saul and the Israelites assembled and camped in the valley of Elah and drew up their battle lines to meet the Philistines. The Philistines occupied one hill, and the Israelites another, with the valley between them. A champion named Goliath, who was from Gath, came out of the Philistine camp. His height was 6 cubits and a span. He had a bronze helmet on his head and wore a coat of scale armor of bronze, weighing 5,000 shekels. On his legs he wore bronze greaves, and a bronze javelin was slung on his back. His spear shaft was like a weaver's rod, and its iron point weighed 600 shekels. His shield-bearer went ahead of him. Goliath stood and shouted to the ranks of Israel, "Why do you come out and line up for battle? Am I not a Philistine? And are you not the servants of Saul? Choose a man and have him come down to me. If he is able to fight and kill me, we will become your subjects. But if I overcome him and kill him, you will become our subjects and serve us." Then the Philistine said, "This day I defy the armies of Israel. Give me a man and let us fight each other." On hearing the Philistines' words, Saul and all the Israelites were dismayed and terrified. Now David was the son of an Ephrathite named Jesse, who was from Bethlehem in Judah. Jesse had 8 sons, and in Saul's time he was very old. Jesse's 3 oldest sons had followed Saul to the war. The firstborn was Eliab, the second Abinadab, and the third Shammah. David was the youngest. The 3 oldest followed Saul, but David went back and forth from Saul to tend his father's sheep at Bethlehem. For 40 days the Philistine came forward every morning and evening and took his stand. Now Jesse said to his son David, "Take this ephah of roasted grain and these 10 loaves of bread for your brothers and hurry to their camp. Take along these 10 cheeses to the commander of their unit. See how your brothers are, and bring back some assurance from them. They are with Saul and all of the men of Israel in the valley of Elah, fighting against the Philistines." Early in the morning, David left the flock in care of a shepherd, loaded up and set out as Jesse had directed. He reached the camp as the army was going out to its battle positions, shouting the war cry. Israel and the Philistines were drawing up their lines, facing each other. David left his things with the keeper of supplies, ran to the battle lines, and asked his brothers how they were. As he was talking with them, Goliath, the Philistine champion from Gath, stepped out from his lines and shouted his usual defiance, and David heard it. Whenever the Israelites saw the man, they all fled from him in great fear. Now the Israelites had been saying, "Do you see how this man keeps coming out? He comes out to defy Israel. The king will give great wealth to the man who kills him. He will also give him his daughter in marriage and will exempt his family from taxes in Israel." David asked the men standing near him, "What will be done for the man who kills this Philistine and removes this disgrace from Israel? Who is this uncircumcised Philistine that he should defy the armies of the living God?" So they repeated to him what they had been saying and told him, "This is what will be done for the man who kills him." When Eliab, David's oldest brother, heard him speaking with the men, he burned with anger at him and asked, "Why have you come down here? And with whom did you leave those few sheep in the wilderness? I know how conceited you are and how wicked your heart is. You came down only to watch the battle." "Now what have I done?" said David. "Can't I even speak?" He then turned away to someone else and brought up the same matter, and the men answered him as before. What David said was overheard, and reported to Saul, and Saul sent for him. David said to Saul, "Let no one lose heart on account of this Philistine. Your servant will go and fight him." Saul replied, "You are not able to go out against this Philistine and fight him. You are only a young man, and he has been a warrior from his youth." But David said to Saul, "Your servant has been keeping his father's sheep. When a lion or a bear came and carried off a sheep from the flock, I went after it, struck it, and rescued the sheep from its mouth. When it turned on me, I seized it by its hair, struck it, and killed it. Your servant has killed both the lion and the bear. This uncircumcised Philistine will be like one of them, because he has defied the armies of the living God. The Lord who rescued me from the paw of the lion and the paw of the bear will rescue me from the hand of this Philistine." And Saul said to David, "Go, and the Lord be with you." Then Saul dressed David in his own tunic. He put a coat of armor on him and a bronze helmet on his head. David fastened on his sword over the tunic and tried walking around, because he was not used to them. "I cannot go in these," he said to Saul, "because I am not used to them." So he took them off. Then he took his staff in his hand, chose 5 smooth stones from the stream, put them in the pouch of his shepherd's bag, and with his sling in his hand, approached the Philistine. Meanwhile, the Philistine, with his shield bearer in front of him, kept coming closer to David. He looked David over and saw that he was little more than a boy, glowing with health and handsome, and he despised him. He said to David, "Am I a dog that you come at me with sticks?" And the Philistine cursed David by his gods. "Come here," he said, "and I'll give your flesh to the birds and the wild animals." David said to the Philistine, "You come against me with sword and spear and javelin, but I come against you in the name of the Lord Almighty, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have defied. This day the Lord will deliver you into my hands, and I'll strike you down and cut off your head. This very day I will give the carcasses of the Philistine army to the birds and the wild animals, and the whole world will know that there is a God in Israel. All those gathered here will know that it is not by sword or spear that the Lord saves, for the battle is the Lord's, and he will give all of you into our hands." As the Philistine moved closer to attack him, David ran quickly toward the battle line to meet him, and reaching into his bag and taking out a stone, he slung it and struck the Philistine on the forehead. The stone sank into his forehead, and he fell face down on the ground. So David triumphed over the Philistine with a sling and a stone. Without a sword in his hand, he struck down the Philistine and killed him. So on today's 10 with Tom, our topic is you can defeat this giant. Most of the giants that we face in our life aren't 9 feet tall, but some seem even bigger than that. To defeat giants like addiction, or resentment, or fear, lust, pride, envy, or anger, there are 3 scriptures that you must understand and take hold of. First, 1 Corinthians 10:13. "No temptation has overtaken you except what is common to mankind. And God is faithful. He will not let you be tempted beyond what you can bear. But when you are tempted, he will also provide a way out so that you can endure it." The temptations in your life are no different from what others experience. Goliath was born a baby, but he grew into a giant. And the giants that we face in life are often little sins that we overlooked and indulged until they assumed a life of their own and they came back to haunt us. So as you begin to say no to small impulses, you will gain the strength to say it to the bigger ones. Second, 1 Samuel 17:48. As the Philistine moved closer to attack him, David ran quickly toward the battle line to meet him. David faced Goliath head on. You must force your giant out into the light and not let him back into your life. Establish boundaries, and if necessary, make yourself accountable to someone who can strengthen and encourage you. Stay out of the wrong company. And above all, don't view God in the light of your problem, but instead view your problem in the light of God. Third, 1 Samuel 17:47. All those gathered here will know that it is not by sword or spear that the Lord saves, for the battle is the Lord's, and he will give all of you into our hands. In this verse, just before David runs to meet Goliath head on, he declares to Goliath and reminds the Israelite army and himself that he is not in this fight alone. And neither are you or me. God wants to help us to overcome old habits and establish new behaviors. His will for us can be seen in Paul's letter to the Ephesians in chapter 4, verse 1. I urge you to live a life worthy of the calling that you have received, a life that is worthy of those God has chosen to be his own. When you repent, which means to do an about-face, turn and resolve to walk with God. He will give you strength to conquer the giant you're facing. God has never lost a battle yet, and when you invite him to join you, you will win. So let's go. Our ladies' 7-week Bible study will begin in person next Tuesday, October the 4th, from 10 to 11:30 a.m. in room 101. The group will be going through Lisa Harper's How Much More? Discovering God's Extravagant Love in Unexpected Places. The cost is $17 for the book, and you can contact Barbara Fitopoulos or the church office to learn more. Also, we invite you to join us for the Fall Festival on October 21st. It'll begin at 5 p.m. with music, barbecue, ice cream, games, and then there'll be a movie at 7:30 p.m. out on the lawn. The cost will be $5 per person, and all proceeds will go toward the Tokoi Creek High School Boosters for football. Show the kids in our community that we support them. Also, I want to let you know that our Operation Christmas Child trip to Charlotte is happening again this year over Thanksgiving. The first trip is Tuesday, November 22nd through Saturday, November 26th. Trip 2 will leave Sunday, November 27th and return on Thursday, December the 1st. Each trip will include a trip to a visit to the Billy Graham Library in Charlotte. The cost will be between $300 and $400 a person, depending on how many people we have in a hotel room. And you must be 13 years or older to participate. And we need you to sign up if you're interested in joining us by October the 23rd. And if you need more information, please let me know. Hope y'all have a great week, church. We love you, and I'll see you on Friday.